Welcome to another episode of The Seat at the Table, hosted by yours truly, Karl Singleton. Of course, we are joined here by Dr. Dangleben, who is no stranger to the show with regards to Seat at the Table. However, as he's eloquently stated to me, this is his first time physically in the room, A Seat at the Table. So welcome officially in person to the show, A Seat at the Table, with Dr. Dangleben, trauma surgeon, director from Holy Spirit Hospital, Penn State Health Holy Spirit Hospital. The one, the only, in the flesh. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. It's truly a pleasure to be here with you at the table. And not only a surgeon, I like to go by Pan-Africanist, Gaviite, and I want to say motivator of people. So, and humanitarian. So yes, I am delighted to be here with you.
So I always say, when we talk, no matter where we are, it's always good to have, a qualified person in various positions, especially when that person is a black man who knows that he's a black man. And Dr. Dangleben is a brother, a black man in America who knows he's a black man in America, unapologetic, truly a scholar, and for the people, unapologetically. So that is always, good to not only see, but and also working with, yourself and others. You've been a great support member of the Diversity Coalition in terms of the things that we stand for, the King's Organization, et cetera, bring a wealth of knowledge to that. But let's talk about, some of your endeavors. I mean, various endeavors that you have going on. We want to highlight those, talk about some of the pitfalls, but then the things that you've overcome as well, to be here in the position where you are now, to be able to truly give back to the communities, wherever those communities are that you serve.
Right. Well, I look at things more from a global perspective as a black man these days. Obviously, as you know, I'm from the Caribbean, and I spend a lot of time, focusing on helping the Caribbean and really not paying attention to stuff around me. I always state that, it took a while for me to arrive where I am. It's really in the last 5 to 6 years in my journey that I started to find out who I am in this space as a black man. In terms of what I do, obviously the medical part has always been part of what I did. Education, I was a high school teacher at the age of 17. But beyond that, I became a businessman, an entrepreneur about 10 years ago, looking at different things, especially technology. And when a lot of people were actually not in that space, app development, website development, I taught myself HTML, that sort of journey. But again, and there was profitability there, but it was more of an individual journey. And as I ventured along, I looked more into how can I start serving people, right? So I created Carry Swap Shop, which is an e-commerce site for the Caribbean. Then we delved into the Caribbean Medical Education Institute. That's really bringing people into what I was doing on an individual basis, more on a group level. Then started looking at things more locally. And obviously, I really came into this area, Harrisburg, because of you introducing me to some really cool people here, including, the folks here at Music Man, and looking around and looking at what could be done. Now, art is a big part of me. I think it came through me when I was young, and then, rediscovered it a few years ago in my Pan-Africanism journey. So I decided that I always wanted to open an art gallery. So we've done that. You've seen it. We've opened an art gallery called Nyeusi Gallery, which really, I call it the circle of art, meaning that we embrace the African-American art, especially the local artists. 1, 2, go back to the Caribbean roots of where I came from. And then 3, the motherland Africa. So what that does is it connects us to who we are as Black people, because in the art, there is history and we celebrate our ancestry. That's one part. Secondly, we also have a media component to that, Nyeusi, and then up and coming, we're going to develop a full service print shop. But again, I could expound on the individual parts of it.
And so not only that, we've heard about the art, we've heard about, of course, the surgeon part. And there's another piece. People are saying he's building apps, he's a surgeon, but you're also an author, a self-published
Yes.
author. So talk about, your books as well.
Yeah. I always, tend to forget that, huh? It's very interesting, and for as an inspiration piece, I want every young, black boy and girl to hear this. This is a passion I had as a teenager, and it got lost in the shuffle. And when I had time to sit and reflect and find myself, I started writing again. I always wrote poetry and always had a vivid imagination because I read a lot of books. So I started writing about in 2010, really, is when I really started writing again. Found that. And what I have done is I tapped into what I was when I was 15, 16, and I started writing poetry again. So I've written really 2.5 books of poetry because my reflection is really more about, reflecting on my life, and I have some poetry in there. But Words from My Mind and Get Your Knee Off My Neck are true books of poetry from where I stand. Now, I also have written textbooks for Springer Publishing and McGraw-Hill, which, as a surgeon was a great accomplishment. I wrote the AppSite Slayer in 2012, 2013. AppSite stands for American Board of Surgery in Training Exam, which I just finished the second edition last November for McGraw-Hill. So I've done that. I've written 2 books for Springer, and then I have a surgical atlas coming with McGraw-Hill. To me, that's one of my greatest accomplishment in terms of writing a textbook that will serve the whole surgical community. However, the last few years, 3-4 years, Zenita and I embarked on writing children's books. So we've written 2, and hopefully we'll do a third. The first one is Once Upon a Time in Dominica, which really illustrates how we grew up. And the second one really is about the runaway slaves that really we don't hear about, that fought the good fight in freeing a lot of people in the Caribbean, men and women alike. And then last year, I wrote 3 works of fiction, really medical thrillers. And that's where my passion is right now. I'm working on book number 4 and book number 5. So I have written about 17 books, and I own Dangleben Publishing Company, which also enhances, other folks. If you want to write, you can write. But the problem that we have and the appeal that I've had, I've never been able to find a literary agent. And a lot of famous Black authors or Black folks don't lay down that pathway and create these destinations for us. So here I am, accomplished surgeon, done this, done that, can't get a literary agent, wrote 17 books, but you know what? I took it upon myself to start the publishing company, give some other Black folks the opportunity to publish the work. And that's where we are. We start small, but guess what? We're growing, and there's more books to come.
All right. So at this time, we're going to take a quick commercial break. And on the other side of this, we'll continue our conversation with Dr. Dale Dangleben, trauma surgeon, author, app creator, and all-around Black man in America who knows he's a Black man in America. All right, so welcome back. We're back here again with Dr. Dale Dangleben, who is basically, again, like I keep saying, just somebody that is a true mentor for everyone in the community, but in particularly our young Black males that are out there looking for inspiration, for a connector, for an individual that has a plethora of knowledge, well-rounded in the arts, the humanities, you name it, and ultimately, someone who is a truly positive role model from which our young people, Black males in particular, can look to for guidance and direction. So we're going to shift a little bit because, you've done a lot, you do a lot, but your passion really comes through. And I've been on the other end of several phone calls in terms of even encouraging me to do more, to become involved when you actually truly go in and you're able to sometimes save lives, and other times there's loss of life in your business and your profession. But you don't leave it at the doorstep, coming in or leaving out. You bring it home, you bring it back into the communities. And you've called me several times and quite candidly said, Karl, what the hell is going on? What are we going to do?
Mhm.
I have a gunshot victim here again, another young black brother from Harrisburg. What do we do? So your level of commitment, I admire and respect, and I'm glad that we were able to join forces to begin to address the needs in our communities. But talk about what you're seeing, the benefits of meeting with, whether it's police chiefs, community organizers, individuals in urban areas, so that we can talk from the medical side of the negative impact that gun violence is having on our communities.
Yeah. Well, I've been a surgeon now for 21, coming on 21 years, and I've been to different communities. I've been in Lehigh, York, and now this area, and it's really disheartening and really heartbreaking what I continue to see, and it eventually takes its toll. It presents itself sometimes as anger. Um, and it's not, that's not what it is. It's really more for frustration, because I continue to see too many young black men being shot, and I've operated on quite a few, and continue to do so. And in my view, I think I see more and more coming out of Harrisburg, and that's why I send the text and I make the calls, and what are we going to do, and start having conversation. But I think there has to be a real call to action as the community, because I think what I see, and maybe I'm wrong, is we become numb to it, because it's like ubiquitous. It's an everyday thing. So yeah, another person got shot, and that bothers me, tremendously, because I can see the potential of what some of these young men can be if they had the right, direction. So a loss of life is a loss of life, but when it continues to be young black males being shot, I mean, one weekend we had five between the ages of 14 and 18. So yes, I think it has to be all of us. I could just operate on these kids and go home and take a shower and go to bed, but that is not the issue. The issue is, I know it's cliche, am I my brother's keeper? We have to sit and have, not just have the conversation, but engage the community, charge the community with being responsible for itself in that regard, because again, we cannot afford to lose another brother or sister, because again, you don't see a lot of black women, I think, in the shootout per se, but we do get victims, whether it's a domestic type situation or a stray bullet. It happens. And again, my appeal has been to the community. Let's go out, let's talk, let's meet people where they are, let's try to create an environment, a vocational or technical environment, so people can start refocusing the issues that they have. But one of the biggest things that I think needs to be addressed is mental health,
Mhm.
because I think it's all intertwined. Because I think, especially in the last year and a half, all the challenges we've had, people have a lot of hardships. Not just health, not just COVID, but the financial strain, the emotional aspects, and people are lashing out. So how do we address these things? It's all tied into the violence that we see, and we cannot, I say, wait for others to do it for us. We have to come together, and then we have to say, hey, how do we address this as a community? Mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, we have to take it to the next level, because again, we cannot continue to watch our community go in that direction. And I think we're still trying to wrap our heads around it in committee, and also trying to go out there. When I meet folks, I like to engage them and take them where I am in terms of a surgeon operating on these kids. Gunshot to the belly, gunshot to the chest, gunshot to the head. It sounds so movie like, but this is things I've done for 2 decades, coming on 3 decades of my life. And then you ask yourself, when does it end? So that's where we are. But again, my appeal is to the community
Mhm.
because we have to be. It's not just a movie. It's not just New Jack City. It's am I really my brother's keeper? Am I really my sister's keeper? And what are we going to do about it?
That
And
pe-
and and prayer is not the answer.
Mhm, mhm. And so for me, the thing that always sticks out is not normalizing behavior that is traumatic behavior.
Right.
So not to your point of, and we oftentimes gloss over that piece of mental health, especially in the Black community, but it's so vivid and it's so meaningful, especially today when you have so many of the pressures that are couched under social determinants of health that we as a people don't necessarily benefit from. We're on the opposite end of that spectrum in terms of being negatively impacted. So when you have those pressures of the education, of the workforce, of overall environment, of lack of housing stock, you name it, and then you're expected from the traditional perspective to go out and be successful, do better, do your best. What is your best at the point where they can lay 50 doctors and trauma surgeons in front of a young person, but if that young person is hungry and his needs or her needs aren't being met in the most basic form, passing that quiz, unfortunately, is not going to be the most important thing in that person's mind. And so, addressing the real needs, addressing the fact that part of the mental health is some of our young people, some of our elders have been placed in conditions, entrapped in certain conditions, quite frankly, that they've been normalized as it's just life. When in all
Mhm.
actuality, it's some mental health, some trauma. So talk about that.
Right. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And I think I do have a lecture coming up soon also, but it ties into what you're saying because you're right. We normalize certain things. We think that's who we're supposed to be,
Mhm.
right? And you're right. If there's no outlet, then that just flourishes. That negative behavior, whatever, flourishes, and then you deal with the consequences, such as the violence, etc. But I think there's certain things that we need to refocus on as a community because what I see is what was a means of survival for slaves and poor blacks, 50, 60 years ago, has really spawned into something that continues today. What I mean by that is, there were certain things that we used to our forefathers and mothers used to tell people, young people, and we don't even realize that. I'll get to the point. Don't even realize that what they were doing was trying to make the children survive by saying mean things and horrible things. It was actually a funny term of endearment
Mhm.
during slavery to keep them whole. That's
Mm.
kind of weird, but there's a psychology behind that. And what has happened is that has perpetuated into something that we see right now, and we continue to hold on to it, thinking it's part of us. And I really want to address the whole idea of the male, the machoism, the masculinity. Big men don't cry. And I hear that in the Caribbean. I hear that up here. And we don't give the children space to cry. We don't give them space to reflect on their mental health, and then it gets bottled up. It gets frustrated. It gets into anger, despite the environment that the system has created
Mhm.
for us, putting us behind. We continue to have a certain psychological aspect that we keep perpetuating with the kids.
Yeah.
You don't cry. I can tell you straight up, there were times during my residency where I was beaten down, and it's the same mentality, in your surgical training, toughen up. You gotta, and we continue to perpetuate that in our community,
Mhm.
where young men, see crying or expressing themselves as a form of weakness. And these are the things I think we need to work on while we try to, figure out the other aspects. I mean, guys like you are very involved in the other aspects, which is extremely important. But we need folks to address the mental issues, telling young men and women, it's okay to cry.
Mhm.
It's okay to express yourself, and let's give them an environment. People don't realize that people gravitate towards groups, whether it's a gang,
Mhm.
whether you go into a certain church,
Mhm.
because it's a human nature for us to feel accepted,
Acceptance. You got it.
right?
Yeah.
And that's where it is, and then we just want to vilify people.
Yeah.
We just want to vilify people based on, race and religion, whatever, because of that. But there's a deeper psychology, right, that is actually deep rooted in what we have endured as a people.
Mm.
So we need to expose our young people that are hurting to therapy,
Mhm.
to counselors, right? But the right type of
Yeah.
counselors,
Yeah.
people that understand what it is to be black and in this country, and that concept of being oppressed
Mhm.
deliberately.
Mhm.
And I think these are the kind of conversations that I think young black men especially needs to hear.
Mhm.
It's okay, let it out, let's talk about it. So there is just so much that we can do as leaders in the community, going through that process with it. I think we would see so much less violence, right, and anger,
Mhm.
if we could have these kids channel that emotion
Mhm.
in a different way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it makes it extremely difficult. So you're absolutely right in regard of the system that we live in. And that's why I gravitated towards Garveyism.
Mhm.
And I tell people what Garvey wanted for us as a people. So we don't sit there and strain our psychological self trying to achieve something that other people wanted for us.
Right.
Right? And once you start looking at yourself and loving yourself, there's so much of that other stuff that we do that can be broken.
Well, that's part of what we were talking about throughout various conversations. The importance of highlighting that the slave ships did not bring slaves to dock upon these shores. They brought engineers, kings, queens, doctors, lawyers, judges, etc.,
Mhm.
and turned them into slaves. And so our history, our interconnectedness with the motherland did not begin with slavery.
That is these are the first few slides of my presentation. Understanding who we are. You're absolutely right. Because we always go back to a certain time and we don't know what happened further back. But you're absolutely right. When they took us and dragged us over here,
Mhm.
yeah, we were not wild animals swinging from trees like they want you to believe, and stupid movies like Tarzan with a white guy, swinging around in the jungle saving black people. That's not who we were. So again, understanding who we are as a people, I think, is extremely important, because we lost, and so much energy and finance has been injected into the agenda
Mm.
to create what we see today,
Mhm.
that we don't understand who we are and we're lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. So considering that, I won't get into, because I know you have your series coming up, which we want to highlight and support. I want you to talk about, the gallery, the address, if people, your operating hours, if people are interested in getting in contact with you, how they can do that, and or your staff as well, and then the other things that you have coming up in the future regarding the print shop and your website, all of that. So I need to make sure that our viewers clearly understand that you are out here. You are a resource that must be tapped into on multiple levels, obviously, from what they've been hearing. But most importantly, the endeavors that you've embarked upon regarding the gallery and the print shop. And of course, if there's writers out there, you heard the brother here himself, he's a publishing company as well. And so take it away.
Yeah, the print shop, we have an app coming out hopefully next week. And the purpose of the app is really to give an extension of the galleries. It will be a virtual, obviously, extension, everything that's in the gallery and beyond. The beauty of having this in Harrisburg, we have quite a few local artists presenting their art in the gallery. They will also get to showcase their art on a international level on the app, which we're gonna really, push out there in terms of, exposure. So that is important. That's coming. Nyeusi.art will be our official website that is also coming. We're located at 1224 North 3rd Street in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. That's our address. And again, the gallery is really meant for us to appreciate the art and see the talents in each other, what we can do. And I want a lot of the young folks to come out because it can just be something waiting to trigger your talent in terms of what you can do. And we have some great local artists that have their work presented, and I'm really just blown away. I could not, I could not really express enough the kind of work that they present. And I think the community needs to see that and say, you know what, wow, these are our folks. We're proud of what they're doing and the talent that they have. In terms of the print shop, we will be opening around October 15th. We'll be located on Front Street, I think 1212 Front Street in Harrisburg, and we will be doing that in collaboration with Urban Revolution Marketing with Bradley and Isaac, two positive brothers that I think look up to you as a mentor, and I think that's what we need. We need to really pull the young folks that are hungry for it, so the other people can say, you know what, if they can do it, I can do it too. At least attempt to do it. So they will be running Nyeusi Print at that address on Front Street, along with the marketing company. And again, we'll be hiring a few people in that space. And again, it will be a full service print shop, because a lot of times when you say print, people think T-shirts.
Right.
We will be going all out in terms of what we can do, and hopefully we can really connect with other folks on that level. That's really it.
Okay. And there's let's spell Nyeusi.
Nyeusi is Nyeusi. It really means black in Swahili. It's not just a word that just popped out of thin air. It is black in Swahili, and that's what we're trying to really get back to, in terms of what Marcus Garvey wanted for us as a people when he said, "Up ye mighty race." The idea of back to Africa is not a physical thing, but it's a mental thing. To appreciate your blackness, your Africanness, and it brings with it a certain spirituality that lifts you up mentally and takes you to a place of clarity.
And so what we'll do now is to, of course, take another commercial break, and on the other side of this, we'll summarize and talk about what we do next. Of course, you've heard it here in terms of how we can support Dr. Dangleben, Nyeusi, the art gallery, print shop, Urban Revolution Marketing and Design, the young brothers there that have collaborated with them. And so it is just all around a really great opportunity for there to be a unified message around how we can embark upon our community with positive imaging, positive messages, and overall collaborative efforts coming under an umbrella of togetherness. And again, we always say, being pro-Black, we need to be proud of that. Pro-Black doesn't mean anti anybody else. It just means we're uplifting, us first and foremost as we move forward in our future endeavors. So we'll be back on the other side of this commercial with some final thoughts and words with Dr. Dangleben. All right, so welcome back again. I just want to officially, again, thank you for being a physical guest this time, officially, and a seat at the table with Karl Singleton, and here at Music Man Multimedia Studios, of course, with Conrad, Chad, overall, Craig, in the control room in regards to making sure this is possible, and that we have an alternative outlet, media being connected to our individual people, as we say, in communities, to bring our message as we see fit. So we are an alternative. We make sure that we bring decision makers and or those with connections to those decision makers to the table so that our communities can have access to resources, viable resources that are out there to meet the needs in the community. And so, again, thank you for joining us, but I want to give you the last words, some parting shots, as we say.
Yeah, well, no, thank you for having me. This is truly a pleasure to be seated at the table. No, I do agree with you. This idea of togetherness. We're so divided, we're so fractured that we have to find ways to connect. Um, I see so many other people working together that don't even like each other, and they're using that connection to build economic power within our community. And it's something that we've struggled to do for so long. And I always talk about the money coming in and the money going out, and we're not really benefiting from it. We're the consumers. So I really am about, togetherness and working towards a plane of positivity. And all of us should not necessarily always agree, because again, that doesn't truly exist, but get along to a point of uplifting our community together. And like you said, togetherness, and I've always said it even on my previous shows, is we're better together. And I think it's time for all of us to sit, not just at a table, but just sit and look within ourselves and say, you know what, it's time for us to make a change here in Harrisburg. It's a change. It's time for us to put our differences aside, all come together, work together, not just for the individual, but for the community, and more so for the next generation, so that they don't have to go through what we went through. And I think that is the whole point of building. And I think that's why other folks do it. They build their communities to a point where they create generational wealth, they create community wealth, but we don't do that. And trust is another big factor. If we're going to come together, there has to be a certain degree of trust. So my appeal to the community is, let us all work together. And once said by Rodney King, why can't we all just get along?
We're not going to end on police brutality, but on that, no, in all seriousness, no, truly respect and admire the work that you're doing, your ability to continue to help from the inside and outside grow the capital city of Pennsylvania. And so again, brother, thank you for being who you are. Appreciate you. And we'll see you next time.
Appreciate you too.
And
Thanks
see
for
you at
having
the
me.
table.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yours truly, Karl Singleton, Dr. Dale Dangleben. Nyeusi.
Power to the people.
Peace.